Guys, welcome into the Gashouse gang. Obviously on the KMOX Sports YouTube channel, on our Twitter account, on Facebook. If you're not doing this live and seeing us live, you're probably listening on KMOX in the evening, so hello to you. And if you're podcasting, hello to you. There are a lot of ways to catch us on the Gashouse gang. We don't care how you do it as long as you do it. Although I will say, shameless plug, we would love you to hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Just gives us an idea of what's going on. And you know how it is. I mean, if you've watched anything on YouTube, do that, by the way, for the Bernie Show on YouTube as well. Go watch and subscribe, because a lot of that crosses over in content, Bernie, but there you're getting the full version and on here we're getting a little slice of it because it's a little different format, which I think is what makes the balance between the two really cool.
Yeah, and I've generally speaking, pardon me, Kev, I've really enjoyed sort of diversifying in my career. I write. I don't write as frequently as I used to, but I really enjoy in effect doing video columns, and I enjoy working with other people like you and Paulie and Ackerman, and I'll go hang out on a live stream with the fellas dealing the cards. I'm a big fan of what they do. Mm-hmm. Katie Woo's had me on Cardinal Territory, another YouTube channel. So I mean, it's a whole new world, and I'm really happy to be part of it. And I'm really, really, really happy to be part of the Gashouse gang in this collaborative effort where we all get a chance to work with each other.
It is a blast, and we're going to cover a lot of ground today. We will have some regular Cardinals offseason conversation a little bit later on, probably a little on the Blues, maybe some NFL playoffs. We'll see. We'll save that for last in case time is short, and then you and Matt can hit that tomorrow because we have another show tomorrow where we can hit to that. But we have to start with Bob Uecker, and you can see Garland has pointed it out coming in. Bob Uecker passed away earlier today at the age of 90. The nickname Mr. Baseball was well earned, Bernie, but he was so much bigger than that. And I went around the building today and asked a few different people, like, what's the first thing you think of when somebody says Bob Uecker? Dave Glover first thought of Harry Doyle from Major League. Our producer, Andrew Stoles, the first thing he thought of was Bob Uecker playing a character on the cartoon Futurama. And, this is
a guy remember that one. Yeah, that's awesome.
But this is a guy that was on Johnny Carson. I don't know. It had to be 100 times, right? He was always on the Tonight Show. He was one of the Miller Lite commercial guys forever. Super hilarious. But on top of that, a Hall of Fame broadcaster, a part of Cardinals championship teams as a player in the 1964 season. So he was buddies with Shannon and Gibson and Maris and all those guys. Just Red. What a life. Yeah, what a life.
He was really close to Red. One of my favorite interviews I ever did on the radio was soon after Red Chandies passed away. Uecker at that point wasn't doing out-of-market radio interviews. Right. But he wanted to talk about Red, and it was one of the most enjoyable, satisfying interviews I ever did because Uecker was fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. And by the way, he's done so many things, it's easy to forget some of the things, like Mr. Belvedere. Mr. Belvedere.
He was like a lead guy on a sitcom on a network for 5 years.
It was successful. And he was on Johnny Carson's, on his couch. Like you said, I can't even count. I know, me being a man of a certain age, I know that I was able to watch most of those because every time that he was on the Tonight Show, it got me excited. And before we started Gashouse Gang, right soon before that, I was on with Chris Raji, the Chris and Amy show. I'll just leave it. Give you the show, Chris and Amy, which I always enjoy. And I said, so I'm going to repeat what I said because first of all, it's really sad that he passed away because he sort of became one of these indestructible figures in our mind,
Right.
He nearly died a ways back. I mean, he had a serious
15 years ago, right?
Yeah. He had to have open heart surgery, and even then it was touch and go. And after he survived that, it's like, man, there's no stopping this guy. He may go to 100. He may go to 110. He put in 90 years, and I really mean this. When you consider how it all started, right? He was a backup catcher who batted 200 in the big leagues, right?
Right.
And from that launching pad, so to speak, a very humble launching pad, I don't know that there's ever been a career like his, because star of movies, star Johnny Carson, the most popular late night show in history, star of TV sitcoms, star of commercials, a Hall of Fame broadcaster, a Hall of Fame fundraiser. And I've done some stuff.
Good point.
Here's what I'll end it on this. And it's sort of a cliche, but it's true. I think when we all leave this earth, towards the end, we'll ask ourselves questions like, did I get everything I could have out of my life? I don't know that too many people honestly would say yes, right? I think Bob Uecker, 90 years on earth, he squeezed everything there was to get that was good out of his life.
Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up. And so funny. I mean, Bernie, if he had chosen somewhere down the line to do it, he might have done it. He could have been a stand-up comic. Like, that guy was crazy funny. I mean, from one-liners, like the best way to catch the knuckleball is to just wait for it to stop rolling and pick it up.
Right, so many.
The tuba story, right? I'm not going to tell it. I'm not going to tell it because I would ruin it. But we're going to be putting a lot of these stories, by the way, up on KMOX.com. Where we've got some great audio of Bob, like from the Mike Shannon show, because they were buddies, so live at Shannon's, things like that. And some great stories. But like, picture this now. Okay, so before a World Series game in 1964, this guy grabs a tuba from the pep band that's off to the side, and he's shagging fly balls with the tuba before a World Series game. Now, by the way, the tuba people, I guess the band wasn't happy at all. It might have done damage or whatever, and I'm sure he had to pay for it as part. I think he told that story about how he ended up having to pay for it. But like, that's just objectively hilarious. I know if you're the tuba player, probably not, but for everybody else, it is.
He really was a comedian, because if you just saw, like, he would come out with Johnny Carson, and he'd have Carson just like going like this, just laughing so hard. And he always had prepared material. He didn't just go out there and wing it. And he's as good as anybody I've ever seen in the public eye at self-deprecation.
Yeah.
That's not a quality that all people want to have.
No,
I think it's an endearing quality. I love people who are self.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, man. How cool is that?
But good job, Drew. That's our producer, Drew Young.
Self-deprecating humor, and by the way, one of the great Hall of Fame induction speeches ever, too.
Yes,
he had all the other Hall of Famers there. He had them all, but fallen off their chairs because he was so witty.
Yeah,
and a lot of it was self-deprecation. But Bob Uecker loved life. He loved baseball. He loved the Cardinals. And of course, he really loved Milwaukee, his hometown, and everything else. I mean, outstanding. What a wonderful life.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And we'll leave it at that. And obviously we'll have more on KMOX in the coming days. And we certainly have a great depth of material on him. And if you want to hear some of the great classic Bob Uecker audio stuff, you can go to KMOX.com. We've got a lot of it posted up there. Probably under Cardinals Conversations, but it might have its own page. So just go to KMOX.com and you'll find it there. This is the Gashouse Gang. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you on a Thursday. Bernie, we're gonna branch off and do some Cardinals here in a second. But before we do that, let me get the pointing right. Let's talk a little bit about our sponsor, Saliga Heating and Cooling.
I'm always happy to do that. We have been a Saliga Heating and Cooling family for 16 years. So I think I am uniquely qualified to speak on their behalf and to tell you why we love them and we count on them. And if we have a problem, the problem isn't quite as big, knowing that Saliga will providing the help and they will be there soon. They have built a great reputation, 4 generations of Saliga since 1927. It's an independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer, been taking care of generations of St. Louis families. And, and I've say this all the time, but listen, man, you got to be great. You got to be great, not good. You've got to be great to still be going strong and still adding St. Louis families who call you after opening the doors to your business in 1927. To last this long and still be great and still adding clients. Do I need to say anything else? I mean, seriously, 100% credibility, 100% trustworthiness. And it's kind of scary when you don't know who to call. If you haven't had a heating or cooling situation, you don't know who to call. Take it from me. You call Saliga Heating and Cooling and they'll take great care of you. And the other thing they don't do, they never try to upsell you or hustle you. In our experience and experiences of our neighbors, Saliga Heating and Cooling actually look for ways to save you money. They could sell you something expensive And they're like, no, you don't need that right now. So anyway, I could go on and on. Take a look at the Priority Club. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. It's a maintenance program. It's great. Financing options are available subject to credit approval. And of course, that American Standard heating and air conditioning equipment's outstanding. But again, all their services, look at the Priority Club, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, Bernie, let's do some Cardinals. We got a couple of angles to attack here. I really enjoyed your video yesterday about winter warm-up. And, winter warm-up, the entire time that I've been in St. Louis, it has always kind of had kind of a plucky vibe, right? It's fun. You're building to a new season. The Cardinals are always expecting good things. Again, Cliff's Notes version, because you went in great depth. And by the way, it was phenomenal depth. You went in great depth on your YouTube channel on the Bernie Show. Thanks. But Cliff's Notes version, what do you expect this weekend as far as mood, as far as how people are going to conduct themselves, things like that?
Well, I know we talked about this in Monday's Gashouse Gang when all four of us were together. First of all, I want to say this, and I want to say it emphatically. The fans who want to attend and who enjoy this and who look forward to it every year and really get the most of it, the experience. There may be fewer of them this year. I would anticipate so. But I appreciate the fact they want to go there and they're going to enjoy it because they love the Cardinals. And I'm not saying everyone should feel as they do, but I get tired of other Cardinals fans shaming people like this. I mean, seriously, who the heck would any of us think we are for shaming another fan because they want to do something that they want to do on their time and their money? I can't stand that stuff, and social media has made it worse. But anyway, you got to be honest, though. Just like that famous Seinfeld episode where they did their pitch. And well, what's this NBC? Well, what's this all about? What's the show about? It's a show about nothing. and the TV executive said nothing. And then I think it was Costanza said absolutely nothing. It's a show about nothing. So I think about that because I'm not trying to belittle the Cardinals, but nothing has happened. Okay. They said, we're not going to re-sign Paul Goldschmidt. All right. We're not going to pick up the options for Lynn and Gibson. But that's it. Nothing has happened. They haven't spent $1 on free agents. They haven't made a trade either to bring someone in or to offload walkier talent like Helsley and Fetty that would boost their soft rebuilding efforts.
Right.
And the one thing they had to do, trade Nolan Arenado, they haven't been able to do. They still can, but they haven't been able to do. So this has been, to steal from Seinfeld one more time, this has been the offseason about nothing. Cutting payroll is one of the things, but other than that, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's true.
Yeah, no, look, it is. And it's part of, I wanted to use that as the jumping off point for something that I brought up with you a few times. And I keep bringing up that is an overall theme that covers a lot of things related to the Cardinals is I want to know like how they're going to pivot and how they're going to adapt if the Arenado thing's not going to work out. If there's no deal there and nobody wants to make a favorable deal, the pivot can't just be, well, we'll just come back with what we had or come back with all the guys, right? Don't you? I mean, I know they want to cut more money. So maybe Steven Matz moves, but that doesn't still change the roadblock of players that you have and the inability to create opportunities for people. And I think that I'm really curious to see, would they get uncomfortable at all, Bernie, in your mind? Is there any chance they would do something that they would view as uncomfortable to clear a logjam, if not payroll, or use some of that to help clear payroll? So I mentioned this the other day when Tom and I were talking about an out of the box idea.
I listened to it. It was good.
Yeah, and I want to be clear to our people that are listening and watching. I'm not saying you have to trade Alec Burleson. I'm not saying that there's time to move on. None of that. I'm saying he could be a very useful asset. And you have other guys that can do the DH job. You can get Herrera at bats there if you want the defense behind the plate, or if you just want to keep him in the lineup when he's hitting well. You can get Sajaci at bats in the infield and let Gorman DH. You can, you've got another Alec Burleson at Memphis and Matt Koperniak, who's put up very similar numbers, and he's the same age. Like, would it be such a terrible thing to be creative? Whether it's Burleson or not, I don't care. It's just more of an example of a way that you could be creative to accomplish goals.
Well, especially if they keep Arenado, because, the logjam, which already exists, is going to get worse, to your point. And the one guy who, in the way I see it, and obviously the way you see it, the one guy who is expendable, if we're going to target someone who's expendable, it would be Alec Burleson, because the Cardinals, they don't really want to play him in left field much. He's okay at first base.
He's fine.
But with Wilson Contreras there, and they want him in the lineup a lot, Contreras will also be DHing. So I guess that's a spot where Burleson could play X amount of games. But the Cardinals have a lot of people who can DH. It's not a need. In fact, in the scenario where Gorman's not playing third base and he has to go back to second, Gorman, which I failed to mention on my video yesterday, which was stupid, but sometimes I do that. No, yeah, Gorman could take a lot more shifts as the designated hitter, which boxes out Burleson. I've also thought about if Gorman is playing second base because he has to, you could spruce up your outfield offense by moving Donovan to left field and Nootbaar to center field.
Yeah.
I don't know that they will do that, because
I like that idea a lot,
because the manager is just absolutely obsessed and fixated with Michael Ciani, as we've talked about, to the point where they won't even, in my opinion, if I'm wrong, I'll say it, they won't even give a fair shot to Victor Scott to make the team. That's my prediction. But if you want to have better outfield offense and not really sacrifice much defensively, you could go Donovan, Nootbaar, and Jordan Walker. But what that means is that there's even less ways to deploy Burleson, as you've pointed out. You take the DH, there's not as many DH spot at bats, not as many first base at bats, not as many left field at bats, so to speak.
Right,
So
right.
I'm sorry I went on too long, but I was
no, not at all. Not at all. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. So will they
do
it?
And if not, it
Right.
doesn't have to be that. Like, that was just an example of one way you could say, hey, we need to move Steven Matt's money. What if we attached Burleson to it,
Right.
and maybe we get like a power arm for the bullpen who's caught in AAA, or, I'm not saying move for nothing, because my point is Burleson has value. Not got to get rid of him. You don't got to get rid of him. He's cheap and controlled, and he swings the bat well. But the point is, if you're trying to accomplish several things and you can't do that in one way, right? If the Arenado door is shut, because if you move Arenado, well, then I don't want to move Burleson. I want him to be a part of the DH outfield first base mix. So basically what we're doing is trying to figure out, will they find a way to adapt if plan A doesn't work?
They can, but I don't have a lot of confidence that they will, at least maybe not to the extent that you or I would.
Right.
So we'll have to wait and see, but it's just so strange they're in this place where it looked like it was going to be maybe easier than expected to trade Arenado. And the only thing that upsets me about this, Arenado, who may have actually made the wrong decision because he assumed there were going to be other opportunities he liked more in Houston.
Right.
He has every right to veto a trade. That's think correct. We've all backed him on that. But I think it may turn out to be a mistake unless he can get to the Red Sox where he would like to go, right? But the one thing about this that bothers me, if the reporting has been accurate on this, is that the Cardinals are unwilling to eat a lot of the money. They only want to pay a certain amount of the $64 million, and it is $64 million because the Rockies are paying for $10 million of the $74 million the next 2 years. Right. That they won't budge. At least that's their public stance. They're not budging in terms of, no, we're not eating all that money or most of that money. Well, even if they eat half of it, they're still saving money. Yeah. So what?
Yeah. A lot. You're still saving over $30 million that way.
So I assume, and maybe even if they pick up 60%, 70% of the money, they're still saving money.
Yeah.
And,
a lot.
But if they aren't willing to eat as much of the contract as potential trade partners want them to, well, let's circle back. Then they've created, which is frankly, man, it's been kind of a John Mozeliak specialty. They've created another logjam, and they can't make all the pieces fit comfortably.
Yeah.
So eat the money. You're still going to save. You don't have to be a Nobel winning economist to figure that out. Right?
No. And it's funny because, and we'll move on to some hockey here in a second, but
Sure.
What's funny is this is very kind of emblematic of the overall state of the team,
Sure.
right? Kind of caught in between because they're not bad. This is not some garbage team that's going to go lose 100 games, but you're just caught in the middle, which, by the way, might end up being a good transition for our Blues talk.
The Cardinals are kind of a headache. And I listen, man, I'm really looking forward to spring training and the start of the season. I'm looking for whatever adventures are going to come our way. I think it's going to be a really interesting season because it's John Mozeliak's last season. And Chaim Bloom's in the bullpen, warming up. And if Rob Cerfolio is already making an impact, starting to get everything mapped out for the minor leagues and the player development system, there's going to be some exciting changes that you're not going to see yet at the major league level. And I understand that. Most of us understand. I think most fans understand that too. But what can they do, just as an overview, if they bring Arenado back? Like, what can they do to make it a more exciting team, one that might motivate fans to buy some tickets? That's a huge, huge challenge.
Yeah.
Because the answer that I know 70% of the people would say is like, well, you got to go spend money. They're not going to spend money. Okay. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I'm just saying they're not going to do it. So what's the point of battering your head up against the front door, screaming and demanding that they spend more money? It's not going to happen. So save yourself some bodily harm. Don't inflict wounds on yourself by having a fit over that. So anyway, I don't know how they're going to make it more entertaining. I guess it's going to be up to the players to do that.
Yeah, I agree. On-field products going to have to do it. It is the Gashouse Gang. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Obviously, we'll be covering baseball heavily. We're only a month away from spring training. Pitchers and catchers reporting in less than 30 days. So when we get to that point, we're going to maybe be almost all Cardinals all day, every day here on the Gashouse Gang. But for now, we're going to mix in a lot of other things. And I want to turn our attention to the Blues, Bernie. We've talked a lot about the play since Jim Montgomery took over and all that. We don't need to rehash that part because, they are where they are in the standings now, which is kind of in between, right? I mean, you're a 500 team. You're on that ledge where you could go to a playoff spot. You could fall back. And what I wanted to throw at you is we have a poll question up, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, is if you're looking at the deadline coming up, would this be a team you'd like to add without being stupid, by the way, without being stupid? I'm not talking about moving first round picks or top prospects for rentals, just like smartly add. Would you be more into here we go. There's our poll on Twitter, maybe standing pat and letting it play and then giving kids a chance as you go? Or are there guys that you might consider moving to further the process? Because I think, you've got the coach in place. I think we know that. You and I agree on that 100%. Where would you see this team? How do you see it for the rest of this year? How would you play it?
Well, I am going to, I'm not trying to irritate you, my friend. See, I wore this Al Kaline hat in honor of your Detroit background anyway. But no, I think the fact that how they've improved since the coaching change is a very big part of the discussion. Since Montgomery took over, they're 12-8-3. Their points percentage is tied for 11th best in the league. They're ahead of some teams that we would assume would be better than them at this point. But since November the 25th, they've scored 59% of the goals, 59% to 41%. That's been the goal share, the Blues goal share since Monty took over. And that applies to all strengths, even strength, and 5-on-5. They've scored 59% of the goals scored in all their games. They're seventh in the National Hockey League since he took over in goals per game or goals per 60 minutes. They're sixth. They're ninth in goals against, but if you limit it to 5-5, they're third in goals against since he took over. So this is a team. See, I do this too, so I'm not knocking anybody. But when the Blues have that, they'll have a stretch where they score one goal. They'll score, one goal 2 out of 3 games, or people just start freaking out about the offense. Hey, I would like to see some punch added to the offense. Like, for example, I don't think Doug Armstrong gave up much to get Cam Fowler, and Cam Fowler has been a really good addition.
Yeah.
Great guy. He's scored goals. He moves the puck well. He's fit in beautifully. So to answer your question, but I had to take the long way there.
No, it's great.
Because I wanted to point out this is a team worthy of investing in my opinion.
Okay.
But within reason. Is there a center? Is there a forward? Is there, someone that could give you scoring punch, who's a rental that can sort of do what Cam Fowler has done, make a positive impact? No, you're not going to give up an elite prospect. You're not going to give up a first round pick.
Right.
But I'm thinking there's going to be talent available that could spruce this thing up a little bit. I think they're worthy of investment. But this idea of standing pat and doing nothing, why the hell would you do that?
No, you wouldn't do that.
It would be crazy to give up a lot to try to improve and maybe not get there. But there is what's the way, man? A pragmatic approach to this. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
So did you see Tom's?
We're going to wait. We're going to stand pat. You don't have to do that. Nor do you have to give up way too much than you want to.
Right. Did you see Tom's suggestion?
Be pragmatic.
Did you see Tom suggest Ryan O'Reilly the other day?
Yeah. Is he available?
Well, the Nashville's got 33 points. He's 34 years old, and he's playing well. And we know, you know him, he knows you. It's kind of like the Montgomery thing, right? You know him, he knows you. He's very good. He's a two-way player. He's scoring this year. It's a 2-year commitment. I don't know how that plays with the cap, but that would be like if you're talking about what you just said. A pragmatic ad. That's the kind of guy, right? A leader, a two-way player, bring some offense, can play in your top 6, not super expensive and not a 5-year commitment, 2 years left on the deal.
Well, I'm a fan of his. It's worth considering. It all depends on the price. That's all. It all depends on the cost. Listen, and when I want to go back very briefly and say, listen, I'm making fun of people say stand pat. Let me add this. And I think I understand the thinking there, and I do understand why they would come to that opinion. You kind of stand pat and wait because there's a lot of really good young talent on the way. It's guys that are close. I mean, Dvorsky's close. I got to think Snuggerud's close, and they're only 2. So you're like kind of like the Cardinals. You don't want to block anyone's path.
Yeah,
that's going to be coming up. And look, by all indications, these guys are legit. They're not overhyped prospects. There are a lot of teams that love to have those 2 guys in particular. So I think there's a way to be pragmatic and get yourself punched up offensively without having to do something you'll regret later. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is where we posted this the other day, and I was surprised that there were people saying not worth it. I mean, again, if you were to say lose, because you're not going to make this decision now. This decision is going to come right around the deadline.
Right.
So if you go into the tank and you're not playing well, then no, of course, then you would do that. You would hold back or whatever. But if you're kind of within a few points, if it doesn't have to be O'Reilly, it's more like somebody like that. And it would be great if you could like pull a Brady Tkachuk or, you can do some big thing and change up the look of the top end. But those things are hard to do in season, and they're hard to do, period. But they're way harder to do in season than in the off season.
No doubt about it. So Doug Armstrong's pretty good at figuring out stuff to do. At the time he got Nick Leddy, it helped out the team. I mean, it was a good move at the time, but it has not aged well, to say the least. So I guess that's my concern. My concern is to not with just O'Reilly, but anybody. If there's term, if you're going to give term to someone or you're inheriting term. 2 years ago, you don't want to do something that you're going to regret later, something that's going to age poorly. But my goodness, you go back to last year's trade deadline. There's several trade deadlines over the last few years. You always see deals where teams don't give up much, but they get the bang for their buck, so to speak.
Absolutely. All right. It is the Gashouse Gang. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We got another segment to go. And before we bring up some NFL playoffs, Bern, remind us again about Saliga Heating and Cooling.
I want to say something about my friend Dan Saliga, who has been running this family business now. The owner operator for quite some time. I mean, 4th different Saliga at the helm, running this excellent independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer. This business down on Gravois in South City continuously since 1927. I love that. But listen, I can only testify their track record. Their track record reflects very, very, very well on them, because you're not going to be around this long and still be thriving unless you were great at what you do. And people trust you, and people know that they'll get the problems fixed when that Saliga truck comes rolling in front of your house. Listen, I didn't talk about this the last thing earlier here in the show, but let me explain this Priority Club and why you should become a member. We're members, so I wouldn't tell you to do something that we haven't done already. It's a maintenance plan. The benefits are numerous: safety, peace of mind. You have economical benefits because by having maintenance only a couple times a year extends the equipment life, which means you don't have to be buying something really expensive out of the blue. You can trust Saliga 100%. You also get priority scheduling. And of course, they have that American standard heating and air equipment. But here's the deal. You go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, you find out a lot more about the Priority Club. There's also financing options available subject to credit approval. It's SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, Bernie, let's do a little NFL playoffs just real quick. These will be snapshots. We don't have to dive too deep on these. Just your initial thoughts. I mean, you've got, the final four in each conference, right? So we're in the division round, and we can just go in order of the games that are going to be played, and we can start with Saturday afternoon, 3:30 kickoff, the Texans and the Chiefs. The Texans, I thought, did a good job last week. I was on I was on the Chargers, so they're not in San Diego anymore, Wheeler. I was on the Chargers, and Houston surprised me. They came out and played very well, but I'm not sure they're going to do that against Kansas City this weekend.
To be perfectly honest about it, I wasn't surprised. I was helping my brother out who lives in the state of Maryland, and he can invest in games legally. And we will be able to do that soon here in Missouri. But I told him, I said, listen, man, San Diego's not in a good spot right now. And I think Houston, that's just been kind of underachieving. They have a lot of talent. I think Houston just crushes them in this game. And so he went ahead and took that advice. And I explained everything too. There was a lot going on with the Chargers, just like there's a lot going on, with everyone who's in Los Angeles.
That's a good point. No, that's a great point.
But that's when this thing was at its peak. And I'm thinking, man, the Chargers are coming into Houston. They're not playing all that great anyway. And watch out. But anyway, I didn't mean it to dwell in the past. Here's the deal about, let me just, I'm not calling something up. Let me just get my picture straight here. So from a who's going to win standpoint, it's Kansas City. Number one, you never bet against Andy Reid when he's had extra preparation time, even though they've been off a while. They needed it. And I'll tell you about that in a second. They needed the downtime, the off time, right? They needed to refresh and recover. But you give extra days, extra weeks of preparation, Andy Reid, his record in those situations is incredible. Number two, their offense started to show some, especially since they got Pacheco back. Their offense, and they got Hollywood Brown back.
Yep.
Their offense is now geared to be as good as it can be after being somewhat up and down all season. The third thing, and this is where this long stretch, because I like the fact people are saying, well, oh boy, that being off 3 weeks is really going to hurt them. It's the Chiefs, okay? Maybe there's a little rust to scrape off early. But because of this layoff, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, will have his top 18 defensive players ready to go in this game.
Dang.
And by getting his other cornerback opposite McKinney back in this game, who's been out since really, really early in the season, right? They're going to be able to match up one-on-one playing man coverage, okay? And what that means? It means Steve Spagnuolo confident in his corners to play one-on-one man. Blitz, 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 blitz,
yeah.
blitz,
yeah.
blitz. And Houston does not have a good offensive line.
No, they don't.
So I like the Chiefs. My only question, I know I'm going too long on this one, man. I apologize. I'll be quicker on the other ones. The only thing about the Chiefs in this game, I might take Houston in the points only to cover.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are 6-7-1 against the spread as a favorite. They're 0-3-1 when they're favored between 7 and 10 points, which applies here. They're 2-4-1 against the spread against teams that have won at least 55% of their games. That's Houston. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Houston hangs with them and maybe loses by 7, right? I wouldn't bet the Chiefs to cover. If I bet them, it would be on the money line.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Good point. I have a similar view about the night game on Saturday with Washington and Detroit. Detroit's like a 9.5, 10-point favorite. May go up, may go down between now and game time. I kind of feel the same way. I think the Lions are going to score on Washington. Washington does not have a great defense. I think like third or fourth worst in the league in points allowed this year. And Detroit's offense is just getting David Montgomery back. He had a great line, 2 great running backs, receivers up and down, and a quarterback playing well. But Jaden Daniels scares the hell out of me. He's so good. Yeah, he's so good and he's so accurate. And obviously, he's got, to me, a little bit better accuracy and passing acumen than a guy like Lamar Jackson did early in his career. But he can also run, maybe not quite that well, but close, right? He can actually run by design, and it's worth doing. So I think it's a scary one, and I would definitely not lay the points. But I feel pretty good about the Lions being at home and with the offense that can go out and score 35, 40 points anytime they need to. And I thought I'd throw this in there, Bern, because it ties into the 2 games. Our buddy Brandon Kiley tweeted this out. So hi, BK, tip of the cap for finding this. But here's the list of teams in the past decade in the NFL that were 8-point favorites or better in the playoffs that lost. It was the Ravens losing to the Titans in 2019 and the Chiefs to the Titans in 2018. So those teams in the playoffs that have been favored by 8 or more are 23-2 straight up and 15-10 against the spread, which means usually if you're favored by that much, you're pretty good.
No, there's no doubt about it. The thing that's interesting about, and that goes back to what I said about the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the one thing about both of these teams are pretty good about covering the point spread. I think the Lions will win the game. It's a matter of like the point spread and who's going to cover, because I'm very much interested on that. Hey, the Commanders overall 11-6-1 against the spread this season. They're 4-2-1 when they're the underdog. They haven't had a situation where they've been this big of an underdog before.
No,
but they're a team that does benefit from having a little extra time off, and I don't know that applies to them though this time around. So Jaden Daniels, he finds a way to keep his team in the game. He'll find a way to win the game because he's done it over and over and over again. He's had so many fourth quarter comebacks and come from behind wins. They're really dangerous for the Lions. The only thing and you can answer this better than me. I mean, the only thing I wonder about is the Lions defense. Can it hold up? I mean, will it be able to stop him? I mean, this kid's in a different world than, say, Sam Darnold, right?
Right,
so,
right.
This kid's really, really special, and he's fearless. He's confident. He's very, very good. He's a tough-minded guy. So you think that defense will crack, or do you think it's a situation where I could see this, obviously, where Jared Goff and that offense have been tremendous this year? Mm-hmm. They'll just win a high-scoring game. What do you think?
That's kind of how it's been all year, really, especially for the last 5 or 6 weeks for the Lions is, the only team that's beaten them since week 2 was Buffalo, and that was 48-42. And I think Buffalo is significantly better than Washington, like significantly. So, and especially because that's typically a good defensive team, and you put up 42 on them without too much difficulty, even though you were down big in that game. I think it's going to play out a lot like the recent games, whether it's the Green Bay game, whether it's because Green Bay was 34-31. The game against the Niners in San Francisco was 40-34. I think it's going to look like that. The Lions defense is a little more healthy than it was, but it's not healthy, right? You got Anzalone back at linebacker, so they'll be a little better covering running backs and tight ends than they were, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And sounds like Terry and Arnold's going to be okay at corner, but they're still very short there. I would imagine this will be high. So maybe if you're interested, you think about looking at the over, because I think both these teams are going to score a lot. But I feel pretty good about a win. I don't feel great about how it's going to go, or, I do not think it's going to be a game where anybody pulls away.
I'm with you. What about the other two real quick? Listen, I'll just cut to the chase on this one. I think it's amazing that the Ravens, because the Buffalo Bills are really good. I think it's amazing that Ravens are a 1.5 favorite, but I do understand because they beat the tar out of them earlier in the season, the regular season down in Baltimore. Here's the deal. You got Derrick Henry and you got Lamar Jackson. You got the best running quarterback in football. You've got the best running back in football, at least for this season, or he's tied with Barkley. I'll give you that. The Bills don't stop the run very well. Period.
Right.
They just don't. And so it's set up for Baltimore to have a great road game. And that Baltimore defense has been last 6-7 games, whole different story from what it was earlier this season. They're really, really good right now. So I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if the Bills win, but I would take the Ravens even covering the 1.5. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And the other one, I think the Rams are really dangerous, Kevin, but unless Jalen Hurts really, really stinks, and that's possible, he's still trying to shake it off. The Rams would, if I was a Philly Eagles fan, the Rams would scare me.
Yeah.
Their defense is ridiculously good now, and that includes against the run as well. So they're feeling confident. They got nothing to lose. Watch out. But I'd still go with the Phillies to win, Philadelphia to win a close one.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on both of those. I do think Buffalo-Baltimore is kind of a coin flip. They're both phenomenal, and it wouldn't shock me to see either one of them in the Super Bowl. But when you're looking at the other one, I see the same thing. I think Philly wins, but they're not a consistent passing team, and I think that leaves it open for a big game quarterback like Stafford to just have a game. And if he does, now, well, the Rams have their flaws, but and especially as you mentioned earlier with what's going on back home and all of that, they've got chaos in their day-to-day lives too. I'd favor Philly, but I think it's going to be interesting. I'm with you on both of those. All right, man, the clock's expiring on us, which always happens to us every time we do this. So, reminder, go to the KMOX Sports YouTube channel and subscribe. Go to the YouTube channel of Bernie Miklasz. It's called The Bernie Show. And subscribe and watch. You can always comment on the side over here. You can see if you guys want to join us on social media, at KMOX Sports on Twitter. Same thing on YouTube. Same thing on Facebook. And, of course, you'll catch this on the air and podcasts anywhere. Bernie, have a great one, buddy, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on DGS.
Looking forward to it, bro. Thank you. Take care.